Alright, so now that we took a look on attributes, they're awesome, they're pretty powerful, but they're kinda not broad enough. If we want to make something different, where do we go? And this is where do you go? You go to Custom Inspector. And in this lecture, we're going to take a look at how a Custom Inspector is organized before we dig into our own stuff. We start creating our own stuff. So to have an inspector, you first need to define a class, because an inspector is basically something that sits on top of your class and modify how it looks. A class always has a predefined look depending on the types that you define, the variable types that you define within this class. A string field would be defined as a box where you can type information. An integer will be defined as a field where you can type your own integers, and so on. So basically the editor script, it sits on top of that class. That is, you have to define that the script that you're coding, the editor script that you're coding, is a custom editor for some type, as you can see in this image. In this case, we have a regular script. This is the name of the class. And then we have the editor script. And this editor script must contain an attribute. The class must contain an attribute. And that attribute is custom editor, type of, and then you type the name of the class that you want to modify, the name of the class that you want to be able to change its displaying properties. Alright, and every editor script that you have, they must be placed inside some editor folder. It can be editor folder inside the assets folder. You can perhaps have another folder like assets / my stuff / editor, and you should put an editor script inside this editor folder. It's gonna work as well. The only restriction is that editor scripts, they must be inside a folder called editor. It doesn't matter where this folder is, as long as it's inside the assets folder. It can be pretty much anywhere within this first constraint, that it has to be inside the assets folder. It might be kind of weird right now to take a look at this image and realize what it is, but of course we're going to take some in-depth look on how you can build your own custom inspectors. And of course, what we're going to build in this few lectures where we cover custom inspectors, we're going to build an interpolator. And you should be familiar with the concept of an interpolation. Interpolation is basically going from one value to another value using a parameter. And when that parameter is 0, you are at the starting value. And when the parameter is 1, you are at the ending value. This is the common application of an interpolation. And we will do that with positions. So as you can see, you will have an interpolator class, and then you'll have an interpolator editor. And this interpolator editor class will need to have an attribute saying that this is a custom inspector for a type of interpolator. So every time that you assign an interpolator class to your script, that custom inspector will be read, and that information is going to be used to display the interpolator class on the inspector. Basically, you're going to override the main appearance, the regular appearance of a class. It's going to be overridden by your editor. And again, it has to be inside an editor folder. And as you can see in the bottom here, we have our thing in purple, and that is basically our element, and the line in this kind of yellowish color is the path that the purple element is going to be traveling. And as you can see, when we are at 0 in this even more to the bottom slider, we have the purple element at the start, and we can travel towards 1 to see this element going to the end. So this is basically what we'll be doing, and this is all going to be visual. So it's going to be awesome. Stay tuned and keep on watching these lectures.